Hello everyone, welcome to First Code Academy. Today we're going to start a series on how to build a city in Roblox Studio. We're going to explore some techniques and see what resources and assets we can add to our cities in Roblox Studio. Okay, so as in every city that you can find in real life and in Roblox, we have basic elements that we can add to their cities to make them look more alive and real. The first one, of course, is going to be the buildings. Buildings are an essential part of every city, and that's what basically makes them cities. I'm going to teach you how to import buildings from the toolbox and how to modify and add new elements to the already made buildings so you can customize them and use them as you want. The second element we're going to see about cities is roads. Roads are essential for our vehicles to transport themselves, and we're going to see how to expand and add more roads into our network of the city so it becomes more alive. The third element we're going to be seeing is vehicles, which vehicles to add, how to control them, and where to place them at the beginning of our playthrough. For example, if we want the player to access a very fast vehicle for escaping the police, we might want to place it near where the player spawns. If we want some vehicles as obstacles, such as this one, we might want to place them in roads where the player is going to be walking through. We also can add some vehicles for realism, such as this ambulance in front of the hospital, or even some buildings next to houses to indicate that there's some people actually living there. The fourth element of building a city that we're going to explore is terrain editing. As you can see, I made a little hill over here that we can definitely improve upon. I'm going to teach you how to add hills, how to add water, and how to add elements that make it look more natural. Of course, cities are not only made of buildings, but they have parks and they have natural elements into it that surround the city or are in the middle of the city as well. Lastly, the fifth thing we're going to see about cities is everything, I would call it accessories or decoration. Cities are filled with stop signs, with benches, with light posts, with parks that have different elements. Even we can add some people as well. All these elements I call them decorations and accessories. I'm going to teach you where to place them and what's some adequate amount to make it look more real, and in general strategies to close and finalize the last details about building a city. All in all, with this tutorial, we're going to start with this sample city I already have over here and expand it and make it bigger so it looks more real and more fun to explore. I hope that with these tutorials, you'll be able to create your own games based on cities, such as the popular ones as Prisonscape or these modifications of popular games as GTA.
All right, we're going to start with an empty project like this one over here, just an empty base plate. We're going to slowly shape it into a city during the course of these following videos. The very first thing we're going to do is to make it look more natural in the ground. Obviously, we don't want just base plates or the little Lego studs popping out of the ground. Although you can leave it like that, it's not optimal as it doesn't really reflect what a city actually is. We'll start by changing the material, and we can use something like concrete or a more natural one like grass if you want your city to be more green. I'll start with with a bit of concrete, color gray. I'll point it down and I'll put a block part. Now using the scale tool over here, all right, we have 4 tools: select to move it, as well as move, scale to change the size, and rotate to make it point in different directions. I'll just use the scale tool to make it a little bit bigger. Now, of course, there's 2 methods of doing this. You can scale it until it fits the base plate, or what you can also do is copy the measurements of the base plate. If you take a look at the base plate and you scroll down in the properties tab, you'll see that it has a position and it has size 512, 20, 512. So in here, I'll leave the position almost intact. I'll change the size to 520 to 520. Now it's the exact same size as the base plate, and I'll change its position to fit one of the base plate. I'll put it 0 and 0 at the end. This way, it will match pretty much the top of the base plate. You see it's like a layer covering the base plate over here. There's two options for you now. We can anchor it and eliminate the base plate, or just leave it on top of the base plate. In any case, it's a good idea to anchor it so it doesn't move in case something like an explosion happens that is big enough that it might actually rock the base plate, this new plate outside of the base plate. So it's always a good idea that you anchor the elements that you don't want to be moved outside of the desired position. Okay. Now, if we look back here, we have a big concrete base. All right. As a second step, well, in this video, I'm gonna show you how to create your own walls and doors and glasses and glass windows and make a little sample house. And the idea for this one is mostly for you to modify the already built buildings that we can find in the toolbox. Okay, I'm making a house just to show you how to add different elements like walls with glass, doors, and how to frame them into an already existing wall. So we can use it alongside our buildings to make a more unique city. Okay, so I'm gonna build a house over here, just a normal square house, pretty simple. I'm gonna change the material. I'm gonna make it out of brick. Oh, well, I don't want this one to be made out of brick. Maybe I'll just put the part first. Okay, now I have a brick house. I'll change the color to something more brick-like. I'll start by scaling it up. Make it around this size. Now, how tall do you want the wall to be? Well, we can try it out real quick to see how tall this one is. I'm gonna select a spawner from the toolbox. If you cannot find any of these, remember, you can go to View and select them to show them over here. I select the toolbox and I put a neutral spawn right about there. I know it looks kind of big. I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller. And I'm going to test it out. In Home, I click on Play. And I think the wall is pretty short. I can tell by experience, but we cannot be 100% sure. Yeah, I mean, it's not that short as I expected it to be, but it is quite short. Like if you jump, you can reach it pretty fast, and it's not really big. It's not really the size of a house. So I can stop the emulation here. Now that I know this information, I'll just make the wall bigger. Now that I have this here, maybe a little bit taller. Okay. Now I can proceed first to anchor it, just like here. And I can duplicate these elements, use the move tool to move it a little bit here. I am going to duplicate it. How do I duplicate it? There's two ways to duplicate elements. You can press the Command D or Control D in a Windows computer. Control D for Windows, Command D for Mac. Or you can right click the part object here and select the option to duplicate. Okay, now I have a new part in the list over here. This part I'm going to rotate it. Okay, the reason my parts can be freely selected and cross one another is because I don't have the option of collisions over here selected. If I had this option selected, then my objects would basically not be able to be one on top of the other or one crossing the other one. I'll slowly put it in a position I like. I drag this one here as well. I use the arrows for more precision. Okay, I'll put them here and I'll duplicate this one again and just drag it until I find it in the correct position. I'll try not to move the base plate just like I did right now. I think I moved the base. Yeah, I moved it. If I don't want to move it, I'll just click on lock and I'll lock it in place. I think that should be enough. As you see, I cannot longer select the base and I can no longer move it. I can only move the ones that are not locked. All right. Now that I have my 4 walls, well, there has to be a way to go in. Before I make the roof, okay, I'll start by making the elemental parts of the house. Let's start with the door, right? And to be not that complicated, I'll use a door that is already in the toolbox section. This it can be working door, walking door, click door, door. I'll use the working door. When I put it in, I'll find that it's going to be right over here. I'm going to start by rotating it. I want to enter by this side. So I use the rotate tool and I use the green one to rotate it horizontally. Now, I cannot just slam it into the wall because the wall doesn't have a hole to walk through. I need to make the hole first. How do we make the hole? Well, I'll first change the material here to something like plastic. Something that is not really that notorious. I'll change the color to white. I'll put a part here and I'll drag it to where the door is supposed to be. I'll use the move tool and the scale tool to make it around the same size as the door. Now you might be asking, is there a way to make it exactly the size of the door? To do that, well, I'll first put it like this so you get an idea of how it's going to look. I'm modeling the whole of the door, by the way. I'm going to show you in a bit how to do the hole itself. But first, I'm going to check the dimensions of the door. If I click on door, you'll see that the properties are empty, right? And that is because if you see there's a little arrow over here in the list of the elements of the door is actually made of different objects. When I click on the little arrow, I have the door frame and the base. I'll click on the door frame and I'll expand it again to see all the elements that form the frame. There's 2 hinges and there's 4 parts. To get the horizontal dimension, I can just click on one of the horizontal parts, like this one, and I'll see that in size, the size property, okay, the biggest one is going to be the width, the first one, 6.2. 0.2 refers to the height, and 1 refers to the depth. So I see that 6.2 width, and in height, I see that it's 8.2. So it's 6.2 by 8.2. So I can come over here and change the dimensions. 6.2 here, 8.2, and I'm gonna leave it at 5. Well, I have a little bit of an issue right now. I think the dimensions are actually a little bit smaller than the door. Oh, I believe I have to add, yes, now I know what's wrong. I have to add the little frame part on the top and the bottom. So besides this height over here, you see there's a height in this part. I have to add the little height that adds the top and the bottom of the door. I think it's not very clear, but both the top and the bottom add a little bit of height to the element. The bottom adds 0.2 in height, and the top adds 0.6. In total, they both add 0.8. So I'm going to go to this part and add 0.8 to its height. I'm gonna go here, and to the height, it's gonna become 9. Okay. For the width, I'm going to do the same. The width I already have. The left part adds 0.6 and the right part adds 0.6 as well. So it's a 1.2 increment in width, which I'm gonna take into account here with 7.4. Or maybe I think it's here. In any case, I can make a little bit of some small adjustments on the way. First, I want to make sure they're around the same height. I believe they're not really. I'm gonna push this door. I think in the end, I can just push it down a little bit. We'll try it out like this. I'm going to go to model and click on the negate option here. This will turn my block into a pink color. Now that I have this negated block, I'll hold the shift key and click on the wall. You'll see that there's two parts selected on the right side here. When I click on union in modal, it will form a hole for my door to fit in. It's not that really perfect hole. Okay. If you think you made a mistake, you can always go back and scale it again. Okay, after tweaking with the results and the numbers of the dimensions of the hole, I finally got it so that it fits exactly the mold of the wall. You can, well, almost exactly. This space, I don't think it's really that important, but I mean, if you really wanted to make it fit perfectly, you can always adjust the height by decimal points until you get the result that you desire. Now, I'm gonna make a couple of windows on the sides, so there's some natural light coming in. And how do I do it? Well, it's a similar process. Okay, I'm going to first make a block that it spans both sides of the wall, so it has to cross over the wall, which has the size of the window that I want. I'm going to duplicate it. Okay, now I have two parts that are in the same place. I'm going to negate one of them and make a union with the other wall. Once I make a union, it makes a hole, right? With this hole, I can scale this back to where it basically hugs the wall and is the same dimension. And now that it hugs the wall, because it's occupying the empty space that was occupying the previous part before, I can change the material and the color. I'm gonna make it like a little tainted blue. I'm gonna put the material as glass. And you notice that it's not really transparent because I can change the transparency here. The bigger the number, the more transparent it will be. I can turn it to 7.7. And I'll have a little natural window over here. You can proceed to do the same thing for the rest. Okay, I'm going to do 3 more windows just to show you different sizes. I'm going to make one here. You can make both materials glass. In the end, it's both okay. I have another window here, and I'm gonna put another big one over here. I'm going to do the same. I'm gonna leave it this blue. It's in the end, the color doesn't really matter until you have the one you actually want to put. I'm gonna want to make one around the size of the thing. After I'm done with this, well, I can add a roof. Okay, if I want the walls to be one big part, I can always unite them with the rest of the parts and make another union, which is a big union. Now this one, I can move the objects around, right? And I can even unite it with the classes. The other parts. Which one is this part? Oh, this is the huge part now. I don't want it, this one. Okay, this one with the union. I can keep making unions until I get the result that I want. Now, don't do too many unions, especially for negated objects, like I just did, because it will mess up the negativity. Try to just to unite objects of the same class, like all the windows or the walls, all the glasses. And now I'll just add a roof, okay? To add a roof, it's basically the same thing as adding any other type of material. I make it like a wood plank roof. I'll put it first here. I'll make it color like a natural color, maybe a little darker brown. And I'll extend it here. Remember to anchor it. So when you try it, like this, how house you can enter. Now, I'm not really sure because I haven't really tried this, how to activate the gate yet. Okay, I made a couple of mistakes. I think I didn't anchor this one. So the glass just fell down the moment I started the game, the same with the other two glass windows. But once I anchor them and I figure out how to open the door, then it will be a functional house. I can just click stop for now. There's other options for doors. I don't have to necessarily use this one. I can use any of the other options. For example, I can just anchor here. Everything I think it's needs to be anchored, I can just anchor it first. I think the entire wall's already anchored, and it's only a matter of anchoring this one. I think it's anchored, so I can play it again and see how it goes. Now we have this transparent glass that doesn't break in all four walls. Okay, and this is how to add walls and roofs and different elements for buildings. The objective of this one is mainly to modify buildings. Making a complete building out of scratch takes a lot of time and dedication, but if you also want to do it, I highly encourage you to try to make a bigger building and a more complex building, like a big house or a small apartment building. You can take a reference buildings like these ones. For example, you can search for apartment building, for example, this one. All right. Take inspiration in these buildings. But no matter what you put, okay, no matter what you put, you can always modify what you have inside. I believe this one, for example, is pretty small, but you can take inspiration what they are trying to do here and modify it as your own. I believe this one you cannot walk in, but you can copy some of the elements, right, to make your own one. And in the next episode, I'm going to teach you how to continue with this structure of how to build a city. We'll continue with the terrain on the next part, which is essential for making hills, for making different types of environments that belong in a city. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this first part of the project. Remember to give us a thumbs up and subscribe. And don't forget that the next part is coming up soon. Thank you. Bye.